Right, so you can go over to outbreeding.
Ja, let's have a look at outbreeding. Outbreeding of uitteling. En dit is wanneer nie verwante individue met mekaar kruis. Met ander woorde, is natuurlik dieselfde spesies. Julle moet altyd onthou, ons praat van dieselfde spesies, maar hulle is nie naby verwant aan mekaar nie. In other words, they're not, even if it's animals, they're not cousins or aunts and nephews, so to speak. So they have different gene pools, and the differences are enough to make sure that no weak characteristics are inbred.
Yeah, and just before we continue, Lorraine, if we talk about they are of the same species, we can also say that they are of the same family. Just remember the same family, they also share similar characteristics. But then you get more than one species belonging to a family, so they can also
Depending
outbreed.
on what it is. It's easier in plants. Animals more difficult. Animals usually, remember, it's one of the characteristics of species that they can inbreed and produce fertile offspring. Sometimes you get different species of animals that can mate and produce offspring, but quite often the offspring are infertile, and we will show you examples of that.
Yeah.
But let's have a look at the slides about the advantages of outbreeding. Main thing is that it increases the variety of alleles in the gene pool. Met ander woorde, mense, daar's altyd, hoe groter jou genepool is, met ander woorde, hoe groter die variasie is, hoe groter is die kans dat daar beter eienskappe sal wees. Hoe groter is die kans dat die individue bestand sal wees teen siektes. Hoe minder voortplantingsafwykings gaan daar wees. And it is possible, if you have these type of outbred populations, to take them and have a little inbreeding to pass those desirable traits on. So you will often find that breeders will bring in, even if they just bring in semen from outside. That's what happens with artificial insemination. In nature, it's a different story. I'm telling now with artificial insemination, of course, is an agricultural or farming practice. Okay, there's a very good example of outbreeding where a new race of, and we talk about race, it's, let's say, a new type. This is also an agricultural term, a farming term. Die storie van die Bonsmara is nogal interessant. Die bees is geteel op die Mara proefplaas deur professor Bonsma, wat die span gelei het. En dit is 'n kruising tussen 'n Hereford en 'n Afrikaner. Nou, die voordele van die Afrikaner is dat dit 'n bees is, amper sê ek nou skaap. Nee, maar ek wil nou iets sê, die voordele van die Afrikaner is dat hulle bestand is teen veesiektes wat ons hier in Afrika kry. Die voordele van die Hereford was weer dat dit goeie melk en vleisbeeste was. En dat, maar die nadele van die Afrikaner was dat dit lank geneem het voor hulle geslagsryp was. In other words, you had to have a long time before the cows could have their first calves or before the bulls could fertilize a calf. Meat not so good, and they didn't have calves regularly. Remember, they used to the very harsh African climate. The Hereford, on the other hand, they had regular births, and unfortunately not, they couldn't adapt to the hot climate. Now, taking everything into consideration, by crossing these two and getting the Bonsmara, you had the best of both. Julle ken mos, weet mos waarvan ons praat van die best of both. In die geval is dit nou 'n bees wat baie melk produseer, wat goeie vleis gee, wat gereeld 'n kalfie kan hê en wat bestand is teen siektes. So the Bonsmara really is a type of cattle suitable to the African climate, but it's also commercially a very good type of cattle.
And to think that this has happened already in the 1930s. Eh?
Ja.
I think the late 1930s, about 1938.
Al mense het al hierdie tipe van uitteling gedoen en kruisings. Ek wil amper sê van die eerste keer wat hulle besluit het hulle wil nou boer, om so daarvan te praat.